John Schnepp. I've been friends with Allan Amato for years now, and I know a lot of the people on this panel as well. And I'm really happy to introduce him. My name is John Schnepp, and I made an independent film called The Death of Superman Lives What Happened. It's about the Superman Lives project from the late 90s that Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman, Tim Burton was going to direct it, Kevin Smith had written a draft. If you don't know about it, you can check it out at booth 3915 because I premiered it here at Comic-Con. And it's a truly independent film. I raised the money on Kickstarter 2.5 years ago. What broke a couple times, did a little more crowdfunding because I didn't realize how difficult making a documentary would be. And along the way, my friend Allan was also working on a book called Temple of Art. And in the process of making that book, he realized, as he interviewed different artists and his friends who were also artists, that he was like just gaining little nuggets of wisdom, you know, in his own words. I don't think he said nuggets, but I added that. He started to think about, like, you know, it'd be great to share my friend's wisdom with other people. So henceforth, the book, the photo book, then became the idea to try to make a documentary about it. And along the way, he was like, you know, I'm going to do a Kickstarter, and he asked for my advice. So I came on to be an EP and like help him raise money on the Kickstarter, and he successfully raised. How much did you raise, Allan? 80 grand. He was asking for originally, I think it was 40. I told him you can make it 65. You fool. But yeah, because it always costs triple what you think it's going to cost, and that's in anything you do. It's kind of crazy. Except maybe if you buy an ice cream sandwich, that's always like $2. So yeah, without further ado, I want to introduce Allan and his executive producer, Olga Nunes. She's been along the way since he started doing the film, like right after, I believe, was it during the Kickstarter? Or, yeah, it was right along the Kickstarter. So it's always good to have a partner in crime. My partner in crime is Holly Payne. She's a producer on my film. And it becomes a very difficult task to do something independently and free of outside entanglements, so to speak. When you make an independent film, it's truly you by yourself kind of floating in the void, and the directions are all in front of you. You can kind of do whatever you want. So you have to kind of have a focus, but not be crystalline focused, because when you're making a documentary, it's not like following a script. The beginning and middle and end are not really there and, you know, cogently tight in your mind. It's a thing that's constantly evolving. And I found by making my film, what I originally thought it was going to be, it still has, you know, I wrote out a story arc and it's still there, but it's completely different. And in fact, the last month of my film, we ended up interviewing the producer, John Peters, and I had already, the film was pretty much done, and then we interviewed him and it blew our film up. It like exploded it, and then we had to re-edit it in a month because it was the premiere, we had already set it. So it was one of those crazy, hectic times, but it was actually my favorite interview, and he actually makes the entire movie because he's that weird piece of glue that ties everything together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Allan's been putting together. I also think the incredible crew right here, these amazing artists that Allan's going to introduce. I'm happy to know a lot of them. They're my pals. And thanks again. Once again, it's Allan Amato.
Just for not confusing the body, I'm not John Schnepp. I want to keep this kind of quick because I'm kind of excited to premiere the first official bit of footage for the film. Hopefully some of our Kickstarter donors are here today. And thank you. Yes, give yourself a name, even if it's just one. I started doing the book, and basically the origin story of this is I felt like I was getting a lot of wisdom from the people that I was shooting, artists or people, organically reticent people that don't like to be photographed. They tend not to really enjoy having a sort of black box pointed at their face. So what I found out I was doing was kind of talking to them and helping put them at ease. And because we're both artists, you talk, and most artists talk about is just more art. So what I found was that my creative process was being positively influenced, whether it was talking to David Mack about turning off your critical mind and letting your inventive mind run free, and then bringing the critical mind back to, you know, critique what you're doing after you put it on the page, or Barron talking about emotional memory and then singing gospel music. I feel like I was privy to all this wisdom that nobody else was getting to see, and that was kind of the genesis of the film. I thought I was going to make like this cute little film to just kind of show some of the wisdom that I was learning from these people. And then when I brought Olga on as my co-producer and co-writer, that kind of got bigger and blossomed out because I tend to like take the ID and the wallet from the drunk, and Olga like rummages through all the pockets and kind of finds all the loose change. So I felt like I was coming at it from one angle, and she would come at it from another angle, and add a lot of color to it. And then it just started getting bigger and bigger. And then, once we'd done the Kickstarter and actually had a little bit of money to run with it, we realized that this isn't really all about how to put ink on paper. It's all about how to be creative and find something that you love to do, because we're not here forever. So go find a thing that you love, because you'll enjoy your life more as a result of it. And also a great thing was we were making a movie about making a big creative thing, and none of us knew how to make a movie, so it was cool to actually make something that was teaching us how to make the thing, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing the entire time. So that was an interesting thing, and my hope is that that's what people get out of it. Those of you who get to watch it, and other people get to watch it, is just this is kind of like a shorthand. Like, you want to make a big thing, here's a shorthand. Here's all these people that did it and have been doing it, and usually pretty unsung. But that's it. That's all I have to say. I'm excited to premiere the thing, but first I want to introduce my co-producer and co-writer and co-conspirator, Olga.
I totally agree with everything that Allan said. This movie, I think, has taken on a life of its own in terms of being a thing that when people see the footage that we've done so far, everyone gets a different thing out of it. And my hope is that people see it and are inspired by these wonderful humans among the artists that we have in the film, to go forth and pursue art or whatever passion sort of drives them forward in life. So if you would like to go forth and introduce yourselves, and then we're going to show the trailer.
I'm Mack. I'm most known for writing and drawing Kabuki and writing and drawing Daredevil for Marvel, doing the Fight Club covers right now. Met Allan when he was doing a photography session with me, and he just started asking questions, and we started introducing people to each other. Olga actually email introduced us ahead of time, so she was kind of producing this before she knew it, even way ahead of time, just introducing people.
I'm Barron Storey, and I got into this project because I have a lot of very, very talented younger friends. And I was really happy to be a part of it. It was really a good time for me, and Allan and Olga have been super about the whole process. We threw paper airplanes out of my back window, and I never thought anybody in the world would think of that. It was astonishing. And I got a lot of compliments on the creativity of that, and nothing to do with me, really. It was Olga's idea, I believe, and Allan supported it with the film work. It was great. And maybe you've seen it. It's good. But I became sort of the guy on the panel that really is ready to admit that sometimes you get a little disappointed in the way things go, and you keep on keeping on. That's my contribution to the aesthetics and the inspiration of this great crew of artists. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Bill Sienkiewicz. I'm, I guess, mostly known for Elektra and Mutants, Moon Knight, mostly for Marvel and DC. But I actually met Allan through my buddy David Mack. Did some photography, and not only is Allan a terrific photographer, but we got into some great conversations about art and what drives it. And actually, the conversations, if I'm not mistaken, sort of came about while you were doing the photos to sort of get us mentally into the mindset. Hopefully, you could capture some of that on film as you were doing the portraits, which led to a whole series of interesting conversations. And it's interesting being around a group of creative people, so that as John was saying about having a vision of what something will be like, and then realizing that reality has its own, gravity field, and will take you in directions you never thought you were going to go. So the creative energy of meeting more people, as more of these amazing talents came on board, that really actually seemed to open it up even more. So I keep feeling like, there's that old metaphor of a flower opening up, and then the petals keep opening and opening and opening. That's sort of what this feels like. So I'm absolutely thrilled to see where this blossoms to. And I can't believe that it's like even remotely poetic at like on Saturday morning. So I apologize.
I'm Satine Phoenix, and I'm the baby of the group. I just finished my first comic in March, and it's kind of amazing. I mean, I've been an artist my whole life, but like being up here with you guys and watching, and like the whole process of this book has been so incredibly inspiring, and it like kind of made me feel more comfortable to like believe in myself and make something and not compare myself to you, but be inspired by you guys. So yeah, everything they said plus that.
So without further ado, we're going to show you our first trailer. We're hoping to have time to show you a couple more little bits and pieces that we put together. But this is the first little bit of something that anyone's ever seen.
Why do I love art?
There's really just no way to describe it.
The whole world melts away, and all that's in front of you is this piece, and you're infatuated with the stroke, the application, the form, the shape.
It can encapsulate an emotion and a moment in time that has never been there before in that way prior, and will never be there again in the same way.
That's why people often mistake art for magic, is that it's a branch of magic.
I started drawing when I was like 6 years old.
I've been drawing since I was 4 years old.
I wrote a paper in 4th grade that said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I wanted to be the guy who illustrated Dungeons & Dragons.
That was sort of my favorite thing in the world to do, and I just made it my goal to figure out how do I do that for the rest of my life.
The problem that artists seem to have is that they're so convinced underneath everything that what they're doing isn't real.
I'll never support myself as an artist. I'm lying to myself.
You look at the stuff that you do and say, ugh, that's terrible. No matter how successful you are, no matter how much work you've done, you can only see the parts of it that you did wrong.
Here's all these books that I made, this guy made, but how did I do that? I used to be good. I don't know how to do that anymore. You hit a point where you realize that happens every single time.
In the arts, when you're creative, you can't be afraid to look like an asshole. Like here, I'll fucking remove the mystery for everybody who's like, will I look like, yes, you're gonna look like an asshole sooner or later, man. Maybe your whole fucking career, but what's the alternative?
If you don't fail, you're not reaching very high.
I did a book when I was in my 20s with Neil Gaiman called Signal to Noise, about a creative person who found that they only had a few months to live, and how does that affect your choices in life. And I always loved that question. If finding out I only had another 6 months to live changed my decisions now, well, why aren't I just doing those things now?
I'm doing exactly what 11-year-old Teresa wanted to be doing.
And I'm doing exactly, I wrote the paper in 4th grade saying I want to do D&D. Well, I've done that.
Just do it. Just don't overthink it. Just do it until you get better at it.
Start things. It's very important to start things. Make the time to start things.
Don't think about starting, just do it. If you're thinking about it right now, pick up a pencil and just do it. Don't even let me finish my sentence, just start doing it.
And then finish things.
I don't care how stupid it is, do it. Like, if it's a dream, fucking chase it. Unless your dream is hunting small children, then obviously I'm not talking to you.
The thing that you should do in life is the thing you do for free.
It comes down to grit, man. You just gotta keep going. You can't stop. You can't let anything stop you.
We all get a little self-conscious about using these overly poetic terms, but it's beautiful. It is. It's poetry. It's glorious. It's a really amazing thing that we're capable of doing when we allow ourselves to do it.
We all want to share. You know, there's 3 things we need in life: food, fucking, and to be heard. And to be heard is the point of the artist, man. I was here. Look at these ideas I had. Do you feel this way? It's a shout into the darkness about, like, this is how I feel. Do you understand? And you hope to fuck. There are people out there that go, yeah. And it don't matter if there's 1 or 1 million. You've been heard.
Turns out that learning how to make a film plenty of time left for some Q&A, and I'm going to show you a couple more pieces of footage that are going to make it into the actual film, little vignettes that we like to do, to basically kind of, I guess, sweat the weaponry. First of all, David, your dancing style is very impressive. I really feel like it made the trailer. I think it was sort of glue that held the trailer together. But it brings up an important point, which is something we've talked about a lot, which is the importance of play. Can you, and this is for everybody, it's not just for David. I just want to start with David, but can you talk a little bit about why it's important to play while we work?
I think a lot of times when we're making something, and especially if we're making it for a specific purpose or a reason, we tend to editorialize ourselves in the process and kind of think critically about everything that we're making as we're making it. And for myself, I found that those are two different parts of my brain, the part that makes stuff and then the part that edits it. And so whether it's writing or drawing or anything, I think it's really important when you're first doing it just to let everything flow. Don't worry, don't edit it out of existence while you're doing it. If you're writing a sentence and you start to think too critically, maybe that doesn't belong there, and you start erasing each sentence after you write it, you won't get anywhere. So I think you just let everything come out, as ridiculous as it is. And a lot of times you'll come back to it afterwards, and then you have a critical mind and you have a fresh perspective. Because when you're making it, you're not objective enough to be editing it at the same time. So you just gotta cultivate a kind of playful mind to let that happen. And if you can look at the first part of it as a very playful, whimsical approach, I think that benefits and gives you a lot more to work with when you come back to it later to try to find if this was the right solution, if it's the right answer to what you're looking for currently. And a lot of the times when you're just playful and put all kinds of ideas out there, you might give the wrong answer to this project, but it might be a great answer to another project. So a lot of the things that don't fit into what you're currently working on, you catalog that later and go, doesn't work here, but man, this is a gem of its own, for something later. And you just kind of like catalog that later on. And so I think that's something that I had to get over myself about was editing or making something too precious while you're doing it. And if you can just be spontaneous and not think too much when you're doing it and find yourself in that zone and let it all flow, then come back to it later with a critical eye, that's been very useful to me.
I think what David said is absolutely accurate, and I think everybody has their own. Speaking for myself, I have my own mechanism in terms of the critical thinking and the sort of like, this is right out of the gate, thinking that having expectations for a piece, for any piece, and I think where that tends to be the problem is that you end up thinking about the result. I want this piece. It's sort of saying, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to paint a masterpiece today, or I want this piece to be X, Y, or Z. I want it to say this, and all of these expectations keep mounting and compressing until it's like you're going underwater, and all the weight of the atmosphere is in the. It's basically you're just crushing your lungs, and then you go, and I'm going to be creative too. You can't do that. So I find that if it's possible to be in the process, in the moment, and that's the whole thing. It's like, do not think about what this is going to be at the end of this when it's all done. It will be what it's going to be. It's like just play, as Paul Klee said, drawing is taking a line for a walk, I think, and sometimes the line runs, or in David's case, they dance.
Well, sometimes it's a good metaphor. Sometimes you're dancing with what you're working with. You're dancing with the materials. You're dancing with what the nature of it is. And sometimes you might start with expectations.
And sometimes the piece is actually...
It reveals to you what it wants to be.
Kicking you in the ass, too. Yeah. So, yeah.
But sometimes there's like a give and take. Right. You don't want to control it too much because you want to let it tell you what it wants to be.
Right. It's a dialogue, absolutely. Or in a lot of cases, it's an argument. And part of what I think in terms of what constitutes a creative person's sort of makeup is that what's unifying is that we all recognize that this battle that goes on, but at the same time, it's so entirely individual I mean, what David was talking about in terms of getting, dancing and playing, he came to that in his own time and his own way. And Barron, I'm sure, has done the same in terms of when, and I know that I will still struggle with it, Satine, I apologize if I sound like I'm speaking for everybody, but based on conversations that I've had with all these wonderful people, it's the intent and the goal. It's literally to get out of our own way, to release that muse or that creativity.
Yeah, because art is so hard and solitary. You spend all this time by yourself, and you kind of have to find that playful edge in order to be alone for 16 hours a day.
Well, I found that when I've been working on pieces that I've been fighting with, and you get into that. Literally, there have been times I've been working on expectation-wise, and I literally get exhausted from fighting with the piece, and that's when it's that zone where I'm just sort of just doing the piece, and then stepping back, and then coming back to it, and then there's an endorphin release, and that's when I'll usually start dancing. I'll be covered in paint, and I'll have some music on, and I'll just be 3 o'clock in the morning under fluorescent lights, where the entire extent of my world is as far as where the light drops off. It's like nothing else exists, and I'm and in those moments I thank God that I have a solitary existence, because they wouldn't let me into stores again after that. So.
I'd like to add something in. This creative process discussion is very, very smart. And listen to these guys; they know what they're talking about. Absolutely. I have a slightly different perspective. I'm totally with the idea of play and the difference between creating and editing. Absolutely. There's something that kind of works on me, at least, that I'd like to mention, and that is, I think my subconscious mind is hipper than my conscious mind, and getting to stuff that I really don't even know that I know.
You crystallize it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of the creative process. And that's one of the reasons for not getting too in love with your initial concepts. There's stuff that's in the subconscious and hasn't filtered in yet, but will come to bear when you get in on the line, when you get at the action frontier. And this is a kind of...
action frontier.
Yeah. Well, I come from a background in science, and, I am pompous enough to mention some scientific principles. Chaos science is based on the idea that you've got to go into not knowing before you get to knowing. And it's really important not to be too clear in the beginning. They even have a phrase for it in advanced physics. It is sensitive dependence on initial conditions. It produces the butterfly effect, as it's sometimes called, which means that a tiny little thing that you had on your mind when you began can produce monsters as you move along. So I really think that it's a good idea to stay loose when you start. Say playful, just as you kind of said. And science actually says the same thing.
Yeah, that's funny. A lot of getting into the zone of working is kind of getting past your conscious self.
Yeah.
Getting past all of those things that you think you have to hold in check to be who you are and make sense in communicating with the outside world. Because now you're trying to communicate in a way that's kind of more direct and bypassing all of those other protocols. What you said kind of reminded me of a quote I heard William Gibson, the author, say. They asked him, so how do you come up with these ideas? How do you think? And he said, well, the person who writes those stories isn't exactly the person that you're talking to now. It's the person that you're talking to now in collaboration with another part of myself that isn't always reliably there. And it's sort of a matter of you have to consciously show up and put in the work and put in the effort and put in a certain amount of time before this either something of you peels away or something else shows up or some other thing starts to happen that you get in contact with that you don't always have reliable access to.
And you also there's a multitude of factors in terms of just the process alone, because you're not only dealing. I found that there have been times I've been fighting with an idea, and then I would go out and I would be running, and in the middle of a complete innocuous sort of like mind wandering, I would get the idea, or I'd wake up with the idea. It would come at a very non-specific time that was related to anything that had to do with the project I might have been working on. And I find that you can be working on it, fighting it, and then it will come to you. So it's allowing your subconscious mind to sort of, it will continue to keep going, and which is one of the things I think about with in terms of dreaming. But you're also working on the technical aspects in terms of scientific, to me, I also had a scientific background in chemistry, and so that most of what I do is I treat a lot of my supplies as chemistry projects. So I try to see what things I can combine that's not going to get me put on a government watch list, but it's still to me, it's like trying to be facile and technically correct enough to know what I'm doing to get my idea across, because it's a linguistic skill in some respects, the visual language to be able to communicate. So the better you have, the greater your grasp of technical facilities allows you to greater access to your subconscious. So you're literally working everything up at sort of a very uneven kind of steps. Some people are really technically proficient and are just blow me away, and I feel like what they're saying with it, for my own taste, it's utterly vacuous and it doesn't do anything for me. It's an exercise in technical ability and I would rather see a thing that looks wrong but feels right, feels true, than looks accurate but feels like, so what? And that's again.
I'm actually experiencing that right now, because coming up with a story, 6-year-old Satine is like, okay, and then this thing came in, it's all, and then that guy comes in and goes, pew pew. Like, that's the fun, playful. But then the 30-something-year-old Satine is like, oh, I have the physical skills, and if I spend too much time doing all not creating it and just putting it down on paper, and I don't balance it with the 6-year-old, you have to go back and forth. Otherwise, you almost lose creativity. Like you said, it becomes too technical and there's no heart in it.
This is why Temple of Art is going to be the world's first 37-hour long.
It's like we do tend to be isolated. So whenever we're given an opportunity to speak, we will not shut up. So. And if I may continue.
You actually may, but I'm going to pose another question to you.
That was the first question, right?
So, as long as Bill was the last one talking, one of the things that we had to cut a lot of stuff painfully from the trailer, and one of the things we cut was after Bill says what he says at the beginning. He says, I love making art, I hate making art, I hate making it, but I love having done it. And I feel like all of us have a pretty complicated relationship to failure. Not only is it something that we worry about, but it's also something that moves us forward and makes us better. Bill.
I have nothing to say on that.
Okay, that's good.
No, I'm sorry. Say that in terms of, it's entirely a complicated process. It's a love-hate, and like I said, it's a dialogue, and and forgive me if I'm repeating this again, but I said that every time I think I know what I'm doing, the work kicks my ass up and down the street. It will. Anytime I think I have a glimmer of an idea, it's peeling away, and again, metaphor city here, I can't get away from it, but onions, it's like there's always levels and layers to go, and I think this goes back to what Barron was saying about iterations in a chaotic sort of format. That small butterfly effect where the butterfly beating its wings in Africa affects a typhoon, or a hurricane on the melting of the Arctic ice caps or something. It's you never know where it's going to go, and you're dancing with that part of you that wants to be in control and wants to have a certainty, and know that we're living in a vast universe of chance, and the idea that we want to like control our lives and realize that everything can be happenstance. It can make you feel incredibly small in a very like frightening way, but or else an absolutely amazingly wonderful way that you're part of something much larger, and to actually create a small grain or a jewel in the middle of all of this chaos. It's an indescribable feeling of oneness, you know. I guess that's all. You know.
Amen, brother.
He said he runs the Well, I'm making art now. Like, I've only been doing this professionally for 5 years. It's the most satisfying thing I've ever done and the hardest thing I've ever done. But it just feels good. I wake up every day and I'm like, this is it. Like, somebody asked me, what would you want to do if you could do anything? I'm like, I hang out with my animals, I make art, and I watch Doctor Who. Like, that's it. That's all I do all day. And I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah, when it's what you're saying right there, I also feel that having, you know, being a young artist and being influenced. I mean, Barron's Storey, I mean, for people who don't know, is probably one of the most gifted illustrators, painters, and teachers, and human beings that I've ever met. And I'm having the fortune to have met him, and to feel that what he has talked about, what he's gone through, it's the work will inspire, but it's the extra factor of getting to know someone. And we've all had, I'm sure, experiences where it's like, I really want to meet X, Y, or Z, and it's talk about the meeting of your idols, and then you kind of go, oh, I wish that hadn't happened. You know, well, that's the exact opposite of what everyone that I've been involved with that I've met here is that I've loved their work, but I also end up falling in love with the person. I end up falling in love with their essence and respecting their process, and it's inspirational for me. And inspiring and fulfilling, and there's an embracing quality that being around so many energetic, open people that is just it enriches my life. So I mean, anything that I do that I put down on paper or canvas or anything else, it's in great part that I am so proud and blessed to be part of such an amazing community as well.
Yeah, just adding to something that Satine had said, and Bill just kind of said, where Satine was talking about how happy she is to be just making her stuff and got her, cocoon of art world around her and focusing on it, and the energy that Bill was kind of expressing there. I find that when I keep my head in like a state of gratitude, like everything's more satisfying. Like when you're making something, it comes easier to you, and like you appreciate every aspect of it, than if you have too many expectations, like you said, or if you have some kind of external, you have to kind of manage the external pressures and stresses that come to you and try to keep your head in this playful state of gratitude of like, this is what an interesting surprise this line has given me, or something unexpected, not what I planned, but that'll be the next thing I do. That's helpful.
Yeah, and the other thing that in terms of there's other factors that we're talking about, and I guess I'm trying to put it out in the context of there's the artist sort of liberal, freeing sort of fluid mentality, and then there's they're the quote the business people, that we've all sort of, and the conservative mindset that we're like they're like in the U.S. going after the NEA, and the NEA gets such a small percentage of any budget whatsoever. You get the bureaucrats and the people who are sort of, the artists always they live in these castles in the sky and their heads in the cloud, and they don't know what they're dealing with reality. To me, I disagree with that completely. I feel like the artists are more in touch with reality and what is beyond like the bottom line, tangible, hard cold cash that a lot of the people sort of look at. So artists also have to be available to deal with reality, and if we're fortunate, that's why that whole cliche of a starving artist is sort of out there, is that we have to either find people that we trust who are really good at that, or develop those skills ourselves, because there's a lot of creativity that, like as Picasso said, it took him his whole life to learn how to draw like a child again. And I think that part of the creative spirit is being childlike, not necessarily childish, but childlike in the approach. So there's a big clash of sort of different levels of mindset.
We agree, and we're going to jump in real quick because we only have 15 minutes left.
Yeah, so we want to show you guys a little more footage, if that's okay. We have a signing at 1 p.m. at Baby Tattoo, and we're going to do a little giveaway if you guys just sign up to our mailing list. One of these limited edition books that has a little, I'm not even going to show it to you, but it has a little Easter egg from So We Milk. And we're also giving away some prints while supplies last at the signing, and we're also going to be at Satine Phoenix's booth that I'm sure is that she can tell you her booth number.
1603, 1603.
She was very delightful and gave us a little bit of real estate, which is a rare thing in this day.
So, actually, before we get there, for as far as the giveaway, if you actually want to win the book that is like retail at like $100 or something ridiculous and drawn in by all the artists magically, if you guys want to break out your phones now and go to templeofart.net/SDCC and put in your email address, that giveaway will happen at 1 p.m. And the only way literally you can get it is if you're right here right now and go to that URL right now. I'll give you a second. You can take a picture if it's faster. And put in your email address, and then we'll email you or just come by the booth and we'll see if you won. And we have the first 100 people who come to the booth will also be getting signed prints. So.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah, that's. I think I have one more thing to say there.
Footage.
Well, we're going to show the footage. We're also going to give away a signed T-shirt, so you could just pick one and then kind of run through the artist like a sort of Game of Thrones gauntlet and have them throw paint on you or something of that nature. And we want to give you a little bit of time for a Q&A, so we're just going to ramp right into this footage. And yeah, let's do this. Cool.
Been reading lately about grit, and they're actually starting to kind of quantify it a little bit as this thing that is, you might have not come from the wealth, you might have not have had a lot of talent, but if you got this thing called grit, you can be successful because you simply never give up.
Unlike sports, man, you can play arts differently. In sports, it's all skill over will. But in arts, you can get away with will over skill. You know what I'm saying? Skill fucking rules, and we all worship great artists, but you don't have to have natural talent. Sometimes you can will yourself there, man.
For years and years in my early career, it was just nothing but people slamming the door in my face. And the truth is, I sucked. Like, in my early career, I wasn't brilliant. I was not one of these people who's like sheer genius from the gate at all. In fact, I wouldn't say that I got like tolerably decent until about 6 or 7 years ago.
I was bad for like 10 years. I was like really bad.
I was not the best artist in college. I was not the best guy in art school. I mean, I was doing some creative stuff, but I don't know that they would have guessed that I would have stuck it out. And there certainly were people who were technically much better than me
who
gave up. They didn't keep going, but I just kept going.
When I wanted to go to New York, my friends who were in the best studio in Dallas said, you don't want to go there. You're not good enough. You're great for this place. What bullshit. What bullshit.
I think instead of talent, I had this natural do-or-die stubbornness where I just didn't care. I was like, I'm gonna be an artist even if you think I suck, even if I do suck, it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna fucking do this. I'm going to bash through this until eventually these walls come down.
In terms of my childhood and growing up, I was always told I was talented, but what I view my talent was a driving love for doing the work.
I think talent is like the yearning to get better, okay? Because when I went to school in Savannah, Georgia, there were some people who were really good. And I'm like, oh, they're good. Maybe I should have lunch with them. So I had lunch with them. And what I saw is that during lunch, they would be just sketching the people in the cafe. And I'm like, oh, well, that's why they're good, because they're doing that and I'm not. I'm just eating my sandwich.
The inspiration is what it's all about. That's only like 10% of the creation process.
I draw obsessively. Because I'm drawing 14 hours a day, I just get better. Just the same way that if you run every day, you get faster.
It's not like a fairy just comes and visits you, like floats through a window and like gives you some magic dust and like you're good. It's practice and hours and sweating and like not going to bed all night long and just working on your craft.
I was expecting to be in a competitive situation where you had to be better than everybody. What I found out and when I got to New York is, forget who's the best. We got a lot of work we need to get done. We need people to do this work. Will you do this work, Barron? Yes, I'll do this work.
It's like you have either desire to check your Facebook page or you have a desire to go take an anatomy class. You have a desire to like go to a bar, or you have the desire to stay up until 5 o'clock in the morning and draw the same horse over and over and over again.
The whole career for me was finding work not because I was the best, but because I was willing to do it.
It comes down to grit, man. You just gotta keep going. You can't stop. You can't let anything stop you.
I've subsisted in this business for now 21 years, never making anything excellent. Some shit really good. Some shit fucking hits home. Some shit's like, that doesn't matter, man. You just keep fucking expressing. You don't have to express perfection. I'm happy, prouder to be a will over skill player in this business. You know what I'm saying? Skill, of course, skill fucking gets elevated. But to not have skill and get in somehow and stay in, like anybody that says I'm not good at my job, I'm like, and yet I'm here. Isn't that fucked up?
One day you wake up and you're like, huh, all that bullshit that I've been dealing with for so long, it's gone. Wow, and I didn't even notice it faded away.
So I like that, you know, I like the fact that it's an even playing field with the arts, because everyone has their own fucking story. Your story is your currency, right? Like that's all you got in this life, is your currency, which is your voice, and the prism through which you view life, and the very specific take that you have on everything, which formulates your point of view if you choose to go into something creative and whatnot. Nobody else can do that. People can ape it, and they can emulate it, and they can do like a bastardization, but nobody can give me your story except you. My Food, who right away I liked because I was like, My Food, he's got food in his name. But we were talking one day, and he told me the story about like Shrek, you know, because I was like, how awesome, man, Shrek put us together. He was right about you and stuff. And he was like, Shrek, man, nearly drove me out of this business.
I was very ambitious and thought that I was ready to work professionally in comics when I was like 15 years old, sending in samples to like Marvel and DC in New York at 15 years old. And you would get these photocopied letters, rejection letters that would say, sorry, true believer, polish your skills and try again, with like Spider-Man on the envelope. And I had a stack of these things, you know, and I just kind of learned early on, like, you know, just pin those to the wall and have them motivate you to keep doing better and better. And then I started going to comic book conventions around the Midwest and waiting in line to show my portfolio. The problem is having a family that supports you, they tell you you're the best artist in the world. And when I got to high school, I was the art star of my high school. So I thought I was the shit. And it turned out I wasn't. And so I would go to conventions and just get destroyed. I got eviscerated by this guy, Bob Schreck, who's an editor at Dark Horse Comics at the time. He was like Frank Miller's editor on Sin City and stuff.
He would look at people's work and evaluate it and tell them, like, this is what you want to work on, this is what you want to shoot for and whatnot. But, you know, everyone, when they hear that, they think they're going to hand it to, like, a parent or, you know, a fucking kindergarten teacher, and their cats are going to be like, oh, good job, keep going. Shrek, man, he's the real deal. So Shrek would be like, look at these arms. You call this perspective? There's no muscle in this arm whatsoever. Why is this arm shorter than the other? This guy's got baby leg. You don't know what you're doing.
He just destroyed me. And I remember carpooling back with my homies back to Kansas City. And I basically like cried like a little bitch in the car. I've been trying since I was 15. I'm like 20. At the time, I thought that was hardcore. I was like, I've gone through like 5 years of rejection. Like, I've paid my dues. Like, what the fuck?
My Food took it hard, man, like straight up from Shrek, man, in the critical department, just going like, no, never. So he almost walked away from the business. And then ironically, years later, like Shrek tagged that guy. He's like, this is the dude to do Clerks.
In '97 at San Diego Comic-Con, I showed him my work again, and he had formed this company Oni Press and was publishing Kevin Smith's work, and they hired me to draw Kevin's book. So I had this beautiful, like, full circle, triumphant moment with Bob, and I told him about it that night over drinks, and he was just like, "Oh my God, man, I'm so sorry, I can't believe it. Like, you just must have caught me at a bad day, I don't remember that." I was like, "Yeah, man, you destroying me really had a kind of an influence and an impact on me to just keep going."
He went after the shit that was rough, and he went after it hard, and guess what, man? My food shaved it all down, became a far better artist.
I don't know if I just somehow had the tools, or I was naive or stupid or really, really high, which I was at the time every day, that I was probably in denial in a certain respect of like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna make it. Like, these people just don't know. I'm supposed to work with this guy, he just doesn't know it yet. My thing with rejection over art was always, it fueled the fear that I had of, this is really the only thing I'm good at in this world. This is what I wanna do, how am I going to do it?
We all want to share. You know, there's three things we need in life: food, fucking, and to be heard. And to be heard is the point of the arts, man. I was here. Look at these ideas I had. Do you feel this way? It's a shout into the darkness about like, this is how I feel. Do you understand? And you hope to fuck. There are people out there that go, yeah. And it don't matter if there's 1 or 1 million. You've been heard.
Excelsior, true believer, polish your skills and try again.
Go for it.
Time for one question. Wow. Okay, one, huh? Okay.
Make it good.
Yeah, I guess so. We're all looking at it. Well, we were talking about arts and no limitations, and I actually did want to ask you about limitations of your art, as in the limit. I have a friend that's a paper artist, and that's his limitation, is he works only with paper. He does amazing art. Can you just talk about the limitations of your art, the materials, and how that helps you achieve great art?
I think a lot of time what comes from what makes art, what comes from it is you brushing up against the walls of your limitations. You know, you're kind of pushing the extent of what you can get out of this, and you're always kind of looking for more than what you've seen out of those materials before. And that kind of pressure of what would be perceived as the limitations of the materials often produces interesting results.
I think that's a really good point. I think we have to end on that note. But I agree with what David said.
We'd love to see you guys at the signing, and we're going to be at Satine's booth after the signing for the rest of the day.
New
Hope you guys
Praetorians,
enjoyed it.
1603. Anyone want a free shirt? Come to me. I have the shirts.
Really?
Find us outside.
Outside. I've got some things.
Thank you all for coming.